Hi, everybody. Welcome to another 10 Minutes to. This is our series by the New College Research Development Team, meant to give you ideas, tips, tricks that you can learn about in 10 minutes or less or 10 slides or less. So I will jump to my slides today. And today's topic is, in our 10 Minutes to, Ikigai and finding your path in leadership using this concept of Ikigai. So let's talk about what this is. Ikigai is a Japanese term, and it refers to this concept where you work at the intersection of what you love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. So kind of in that olivey brown area. So these are represented as Venn diagrams, and you will have things in your life that represent both what you love and what the world needs. And so that corresponds here to mission, for example. So when I lead this as a standalone workshop that takes an hour, I would show this figure and then I jump to this, which is more like a worksheet. And I would give you 10 or 15 minutes to brainstorm the things about yourself or your job, if that's what you're focusing on in the moment, or your day-to-day life, or your research program, whatever the target might be, and fill in these boxes. And you're welcome to pause the video now and do that, or you can come back to this step later. Once you fill out that figure, the question to ask yourself is, what space do you currently reside in terms of your job or your work or your day-to-day life or the tasks that you do? Are you up here doing things that you love, or are you down here just doing things you can be paid for? There's also the stuff you're good at, but it isn't stuff that you love. So when I did this myself for my workflow several years ago, what I realized is I was spending a lot of time doing stuff I'm good at, but it is not what I love. And I'm very fortunate at ASU that I was able to sort of restructure some of my duties so that I could spend more time in this space that represented the overlap of what I was good at and what I loved. So this is what you want to be able to figure out for yourself. And as you're working through this, you want to be cautious of these spaces, the unlabeled spaces, because these are spaces where you can have particular feelings of loss or emptiness. So for example, if you're here in this green space, you are said to be comfortable, but you might have a feeling of emptiness because you're lacking what you love, right? Here in this bright green space, you have a sense of satisfaction, but you might also have a sense of usefulness because you're lacking this space over here, what the world needs. And so we strive to get here as much as we can. And that may not be that every single thing you do does all of these, but what it might look like is that you have a good balance, say in your job, if you're using that as an example, of each of these 4 quadrants, so that as a whole, your job places you in this nice dark green space here in the center. Now, when you're thinking about leadership and how this applies to your leadership, a thing you need to remember about yourself is that individuals cannot be all things to all people. So you need to recognize what you're good at, what you love, and what you need in that sort of Ikigai exercise. And the kinds of questions you can answer is, in my day-to-day life or in my job, do I have the balance that I need to feel fulfilled? Do I feel successful? Do I feel valuable to my organization? If I had the perfect world, what would my perfect job description be that had all of those quadrants addressed? And taking that into mind, what job do I aspire to obtain next? What would I like to promote to next, inside or outside of my organization? And with this question, I try to advise people to have a conversation with your supervisor about this. Use this as one of the touch points during your quarterly or semi-annual reviews. And you may learn that the things where you want to grow are exactly the same areas that your supervisor would like you to grow. And together you can create a plan that's going to allow you to grow into that next position that you want. So I advise you to be very, very open about this. And then you can also ask yourself, how can I be a leader in my job? How can I lead others and have that sort of sense of responsibility? And when we think about leadership, I had to return to that notion that not everybody can be all things to all people. We need to figure out the kind of leader that we are. And that Ikigai exercise can help you figure out where you fit on this wheel. I need to give credit where credit is due. The majority of this wheel came from Indeed.com. They published this career guide right here. But some of these terms I changed. using one of my favorite websites, which is the website called Fairy God Boss. Fairy God Boss is mostly a blog, but some other tools there that are about being a woman leader, a woman boss, and how to deal with issues in boss. So, for example, I inserted the term charismatic here. It kind of intersects over visionary and servant, for example, in the leadership modes. So if you want to get better descriptions or definitions of exactly what these are, click on either of these links or Google those up, and you can learn about which of these are you. Now, most people are not just one of these. Most people are an intersection of these. But what you can do here is take that Ikegai figure that you had and try to map that to sort of where you are on this. So, for example, if you have a lot of emphasis in your Ikigai plot on what the world needs, maybe you're this visionary leader, right? If you have a lot of emphasis on doing just what you do well, doing those tasks that you do well, and you're sort of task focused, you may be a pace setter, right? You may also be a servant leader. You're humble and protective of your people because you're really focusing on getting the tasks done. So I urge you to identify where you fit and which spaces you fit. It will almost surely be more than one sort of on this kind of wheel. And then use that Ikigai to match yourself to a leadership style that you either already see in yourself or that you aspire to. So in terms of this, you can then do some goal setting, asking yourself, what kind of leader do you want to be? And then connecting that back to the first set of questions, what sorts of roles within this or other institutions match your leadership aspirations? So what sort of job would you like to have that uses your skills and would afford you these leadership opportunities? And again, I encourage you to talk to your supervisor about this, because we are all looking for folks who want to come up through the leadership pipeline. And leadership is not just a job title. Okay, this is a commitment to how you manage your people, how you manage your day-to-day roles, how you share your knowledge with others, even those that may not be direct reports to you, and how you motivate those around you. And so you should share this with your supervisor and let her know of your aspirations, and then work with him or her to see how you can achieve growth in the areas that you've identified. And you can use, again, your Ikigai mapping here to figure out which attributes sort of match to these roles and aspirations. And then you can use that to show to your supervisor, this is what makes me natural for X, Y, or Z that match to your goals for your roles. A workshop or worksheet that can help you with that, again, I would normally allow folks 10 or 15 minutes to think about this, is this one. And I just provided lines here to get started and a couple of blanks, but you're asking yourself, what kind of leader do you want to be? What are the roles that you can envision for yourself that match these aspirations? What kind of job title or job duties? And then what is it about you personally, identified in your Ikigai, that sets yourself up to do this well? What matches those aspirations? What demonstrates to your supervisor, for example, that you are a natural fit for that role or those duties? And you want to spend some time kind of working this out over time, not necessarily all in one sitting even. You may need to develop this with some thought over time. I've found that creating my Ikigai, I did that digitally so that I could move it around over time and I could change that. I used just sort of a mind mapping set of software. But once I had a working version, I posted that, I look at it, and it's kind of an area for me to reflect on at different quiet moments in the day. And then I can return to that and move things around as my jobs change, as my personal skill sets change, even as my aspirations change based on things I tried and didn't like or tried and want to continue doing. But this worksheet can kind of help you in that area. And again, like the concept of individuals, leaders cannot be all things to all people. So this is a task that you may want to ask those who serve with you, who work around you, to also complete. Ideally, in an organization, you have a people who are leading who are complementary to one another. You don't want a bunch of carbon copies of you. The organization's not going to move forward that way. You actually want to explicitly make an effort to interact with folks who think differently from you, who have different skills from you, and that complement the way you would lead your people or work with your colleagues, so that the collective then can offer the things that all of the people need, even if it isn't just you offering those things. So the types of questions you can answer through this exercise is, how can I serve in a way that's fulfilling to me? How can I lead more effectively? How would I like personally to gain more leadership experience? What would that look like, and what things would I ask of my supervisor? And who would I put on a team with me, and why? Why would I put those on the team with me and lead the group of people that I lead or interact with the people I interact? This is not the only book on this concept of Ikigai, but it's one that was recommended to me and I ended up liking it. So if you're so inclined, this one is not super expensive on Amazon. It's an audiobook and a printed book, but there are lots of others if you wanted to look those up. So that's the end of today's presentation. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you again on another 10 Minutes too.